May 1945. Allied forces fan out across a defeated Germany. In a field outside Nordhausen, an American soldier follows a rail spur into the side of a mountain. The tunnel goes deep. Then it opens into something that stops him cold, a fully equipped factory, 2 miles long, carved into solid rock, with assembly lines, overhead cranes, and partially built rockets sitting exactly where workers left them days earlier. Nobody on the Allied side knew this place existed. This was Mittelwerk. And it was not even close to the largest hidden factory Germany had built. By 1943, Allied bombers had established air superiority over Germany and were systematically destroying its industrial base. The response from Albert Spee's armaments ministry was methodical and enormous in scale. Beginning in late 1943 and accelerating through 1944, Germany launched the largest underground industrial relocation program in history. Entire factories were dismantled from the surface and rebuilt inside mountains, salt mines, railway tunnels, and purpose-excavated caverns across Germany, Austria, and occupied Czechoslovakia. The numbers are staggering. By the end of the war, German industry was operating approximately 700 underground or heavily dispersed production sites. These weren't small workshops. The Mittelwerk facility in the Kohnstein mountain near Nordhausen occupied 1.27 million square feet of tunnel space across 2 parallel main tunnels, each 1.8 kilometers long, connected by 46 cross-tunnels. It produced V-2 ballistic missiles and V-1 flying bombs at industrial scale, delivering 5,789 V-2 rockets before the war ended. But Mittelwerk was only the most famous. Across Germany and occupied territory, the scale of what had been built underground was extraordinary. In Bavaria, BMW relocated its aircraft engine production to tunnel complexes near Munich and Allach, where by early 1945 it was producing BMW 801 radial engines for Focke-Wulf 190 fighters in chambers that Allied bombers could not reach. In Austria, the Steyr-Daimler-Puch works, producers of military vehicles and rifles, operated dispersed underground facilities across the Austrian Alps. In Czechoslovakia, the Škoda Arms Works relocated significant production to facilities outside Pilsen that were partially sheltered in quarried hillsides. In the Harz Mountains, a facility known as B-11 produced submarine components in tunnels that had originally been bored for a different facility entirely, repurposed in weeks when bombing destroyed the original site. The Reichswerk Hermann Göring steel complex in Linz, Austria, ran partially underground. Heinkel assembled jet aircraft components in caverns in Bavaria. The dispersal program consumed enormous amounts of labor, resources, and organizational energy, and it worked. Allied bomb damage assessments from late 1944 consistently noted that German production of key items was not declining as expected despite heavy bombing, precisely because so much of it had moved underground. Almost all of them were built using slave labor. The workforce came primarily from the SS concentration camp system. At Mittelwerk, prisoners from Mittelbaudora, a camp established specifically to supply labor for the tunnels, worked in conditions that killed them at a rate the SS tracked in weekly reports to Berlin. Approximately 20,000 of the 60,000 prisoners who worked at Mittelwerk died there, from exhaustion, beatings, disease, and hanging. Executions for sabotage were carried out inside the tunnels, with bodies left visible to other workers as a warning. Historians have calculated that more people died building the V-2 at Mittelwerk than were ever killed by V-2s fired at London and Antwerp combined. When American forces from the 3rd Armored Division reached Nordhausen on April 11, 1945, they found both the factory and the camp simultaneously. Soldiers who had fought across North Africa and Western Europe described what they found at Dora as worse than anything they had previously encountered. General Dwight Eisenhower visited the site and ordered film crews to document everything, a deliberate decision to create a historical record that could not later be denied. But alongside the horror, American intelligence officers recognized immediately what they were looking at. Mittelwerk was the most advanced missile production facility in the world. The V-2 was 10 years ahead of anything the United States or Britain had developed. The hardware, the blueprints, the tooling, everything inside those tunnels represented technology that could determine the outcome of the next war before it even started. And here was the critical problem. Mittelwerk sat inside what the Yalta Agreement had already designated as the Soviet occupation zone. American forces had roughly 6 weeks before they were required to withdraw to the agreed boundary and hand the territory to the Soviets. What happened in those 6 weeks would directly shape the Cold War, the space race, and the geopolitical balance of the next half-century. The race to strip Mittelwerk, and dozens of other hidden factories like it, before the Soviets arrived was about to begin. On May 22, 1945, 2 weeks after Germany's formal surrender, a convoy of 341 freight cars left the Nordhausen area carrying the contents of Mittelwerk. Components for approximately 100 complete V-2 rockets. Blueprints. Technical documents. Specialized manufacturing equipment. The convoy was organized under Operation Paperclip's precursor operation, directed personally by Major James Hamill of Army Ordnance, and it moved fast. Every day of delay was a day closer to the deadline when American forces had to withdraw and Soviet troops would move in. The Soviets were running the same operation everywhere their forces had reached first. In the weeks following Germany's surrender, Soviet trophy brigades, specialized units attached to every major Soviet army group, systematically stripped hidden factories across the eastern occupation zone. At the Junkers aircraft works in Dessau, Soviet engineers dismantled entire production lines for the Jumo 004 jet engine, the same engine that powered the Me-262, Germany's operational jet fighter, and shipped everything by rail to facilities in the Moscow region. At the Zeiss optical works in Jena, precision manufacturing equipment that had produced gun sights, periscopes, and camera lenses for the Wehrmacht was loaded onto flat cars within days of Soviet troops arriving. At factories in Thuringia and Saxony that had produced synthetic fuel, electronic components, and chemical weapons precursors, the process was the same: assess, dismantle, ship east. When American forces formally withdrew from the Nordhausen area on June 21, 1945, handing the zone to Soviet control exactly as agreed, Soviet engineers arrived to find Mittelwerk already stripped of its most valuable contents. What remained was the facility itself. The tunnels, the fixed infrastructure, the overhead crane systems, and whatever the American convoy had deemed too large or too low priority to remove. Soviet teams spent additional weeks extracting what was left, then began the process of deciding what to do with the tunnels themselves. The decision, made in 1946, was demolition. Soviet and East German authorities used explosives to collapse significant sections of the Mittelwerk tunnel complex, officially to prevent any future military use of the facility, and practically to bury evidence of what had happened there under several governments' worth of complicated liability. The camp at Dora was converted into a Soviet military base. The mountain above the tunnels went back to looking like an unremarkable hill in central Germany. For the smaller hidden factories, the hundreds of dispersed workshops, converted mines, and camouflaged forest facilities that made up the rest of Germany's underground industrial network, the post-war fate was determined almost entirely by location and condition. Facilities in the Soviet zone were stripped systematically. Facilities in the Western zones were assessed by Anglo-American technical teams, stripped of anything valuable, and then handled based on practical considerations. Some were sealed. Some were demolished. Some were simply abandoned and left to whoever happened to own the land above them. A significant number of the smaller sites were repurposed rather than destroyed. Underground facilities with stable temperatures and humidity, conditions that had made them useful for precision manufacturing, turned out to be equally useful for food storage, wine cellars, and document archives. Former weapons component factories in Austria and southern Germany were converted to mushroom cultivation within a few years of the war ending. A former underground aircraft parts facility in Bavaria became a government archive storage site. The practical value of the real estate outweighed any symbolic significance the sites carried. What the Western Allies extracted from these factories was processed through a series of intelligence programs, the most significant of which was Operation Paperclip. By September 1945, 127 German scientists and engineers, recruited primarily from the rocket, aviation, and chemical weapons programs, had been transferred to the United States. By the program's end in 1959, 1,600 German specialists and their dependents had been resettled in America. Wernher von Braun, technical director of the V2 program at Peenemünde and key figure in Mittelwerk's rocket production, went to work for the U.S. Army at Fort Bliss, Texas, in September 1945. He would later lead the development of the Saturn V rocket that carried Apollo 11 to the Moon in 1969. The Soviets ran Operation Osoaviakim in parallel. On the night of October 21 to 22, 1946, Soviet security forces simultaneously arrested approximately 2,500 German specialists and their families across the Soviet occupation zone, loading them onto trains to the USSR within hours. The operation was designed to prevent the West from recruiting these individuals and to give Soviet programs access to expertise the factories alone couldn't provide. German engineers who had designed Heinkel jet aircraft worked in Soviet facilities for years. Former Junkers engineers helped develop the engines that powered the first generation of Soviet jet fighters, aircraft that would later face American pilots over Korea. Today, the Mittelwerk tunnel complex at Nordhausen operates as a memorial and documentation center, with limited sections accessible to visitors. Dozens of smaller sites across Germany, Austria, and the Czech Republic exist in various states, some marked, some accessible, some sealed with no indication of what lies beneath. Several have never been fully surveyed. The technology pulled from those tunnels left a far clearer trace than the tunnels themselves. The V2's lineage runs directly through American and Soviet post-war rocket programs to every satellite launched since. The jet engine technology from Junkers and BMW-powered Soviet aircraft through Korea. The synthetic fuel research fed petroleum chemistry on both sides of the Iron Curtain for decades. 700 hidden factories. Built in secrecy. Stripped in a 6-week race between former allies. And the technology inside those walls quietly shaped the next 50 years of history.